A great buzz of pleasure because my trainees have done a great job and they learnt so much from this experience.
Well, the aim was to give them their confidence back, and really clearly they got it back, which is great, and it's very important because next week is going to be tough.
Next time, the trainees face their tallest order yet, as Michelle takes them to the spiritual home of fine dining, Paris.
We can't afford any more mistakes.
No, we can't. I've just told everyone to...
Perfect. Well done.
Taking over service in a 2 Michelin-starred iconic restaurant, their new skills will be tested to the limit.
It's going to be cold by the time Nikita's finished carving.
I have this classic cast under.
You are good enough to do this.
What makes good service? Michelle Rose on the BBC Food blog, bbc.co.uk/food. Will we ever see another PM emerge from an ordinary background like Andrew Niel's? He embarks on a personal journey next.
Film stays with us. It draws us in, moves us, and even shapes the way we look at the world. A season of programmes on BBC Radio 4 explores how our relationship with film is changing and continues with Brief Encounters, a worldview of cinema, Saturday at 8.
For King Henry! For England! And for St. George!
Queen Catherine, she's a little fireball.
What you got for you, Mr. Culverman?
Really?
The King seems quite taken with Lady Latimer.
You would not like to be Queen of England?
No!
The Tudors, the thrilling climax, continues Saturday at 9:45 on BBC Two.
For the love of rugby. The Six Nations. Coverage kicks off Friday the 4th of February.
You touch my hand and I'm a king.
Now on BBC Two and the BBC HD channel. If you fancy yourself as a politician or even the next Prime Minister, it would seem there's only one way to go. Andrew Niel shares his own personal view.
A tiny toy town world beyond the reach of most of us. The plaything of a privileged elite who dominate politics once more. Is this what Westminster has become? 3/4 of the coalition cabinet are millionaires. David Cameron, Nick Clegg and George Osborne went to schools that now charge fees higher than the average wage. And a third of today's Labour front bench went to Oxford or Cambridge. So how has our politics become the preserve of the privileged once more? Why did it happen, especially at a time when cuts in public services are at the top of that place's agenda? Does our new political elite understand or appreciate what these cuts could mean for ordinary voters, people whose lives are light years from their rulers? In this film, I get under the skin of the new political ruling class.
I'm a man of the people. Vox populi, vox Dei.
To reveal a system that's blocking many bright youngsters from reaching the top.
I would love to go to St Andrews, but there's a very little chance that I'll get in. I just simply don't know anyone. It's called the Scottish Oxford for a reason.
For generations, our public school boys have been bred to rule.
You knew a great many people simply by having been to Eton, and doors were open too, which were closed to others.
But for a time, it seemed like politics was changing.
For the first 18 years of my life, I lived over the shop which my father owned and ran.
Now public school boys are back, dominating public life like they used to.
If David Cameron had gone to an inner-city comprehensive, he'd be lucky to dig ditches for a living.
And the Labour Party's getting more middle class too.
I'm a member of the Labour Party, 47 years, I've refused to vote this year because I couldn't vote for a working class candidate. And that's got to change.
Politics is getting posh again, and it's driving people away.
You're not just seeing things getting posher, you're seeing things getting narrower as well.
Westminster has become a closed shop for the privileged, but do we have to resign ourselves to it getting posher still?
Order! Order!
Never mind his politics. Gordon Brown's departure from Downing Street last year was historic. It marked the end of Britain's great post-war experiment in political meritocracy. Out went a grammar school boy, the only university-educated Prime Minister who hadn't gone to Oxford or Cambridge. Coming the other way, two public school boys who both went to Oxbridge and who were both part of the political elite by their 20s.
Prime Minister, do you now regret when once asked what your favourite joke was, you replied, Nick Clegg? And Deputy Prime Minister, what do you think of that?
We're all going to have. I'm afraid I did once. We're all... Come back!
Not so much PM and Deputy PM as head boy and deputy head boy. Don't be surprised by how comfortable they look together. After all, they come from the same very comfortable backgrounds. David Cameron is the son of a stockbroker. Nick Clegg's father, a bank chairman. Mr. Cameron is fifth cousin twice removed to the Queen and went to prep school with Prince Edward. His wife is the daughter of an 8th baronet, descended from Charles II. Mr. Clegg is a descendant of the Russian aristocracy. His grandfather was a top Dutch financier. His wife is the daughter of a Spanish senator. Mr. Cameron went to Eton, where he met future London Mayor Boris Johnson and many of his current government. Mr. Clegg went to Westminster School, where he acted with Helena Bonham Carter, daughter of a Liberal dynasty. After Oxbridge, by their late 20s, both were political special advisors. Cameron to Tory Chancellor Norman Lamont, Clegg to Tory Euro Commissioner Leon Britton.
It's one of the great mysteries of 21st century Britain, made all the more mysterious because almost nobody wants to talk about it. I'm one of the grammar school generation. I grew up part of a post-war meritocracy which slowly began to infiltrate the citadels of power through ability and ambition, rather than background and connections. Of course, the public school educated still held a disproportionate share of the top jobs, but we were in no doubt that meritocracy was here to stay. It never dawned on us that at the start of a new century, it would have ground to a halt.
Few politicians want to admit to what's happening. David Davis, working-class boy turned leading Tory politician, is an exception.
We come from roughly similar sort of backgrounds. Yeah. Do you think someone from our kind of background today would have the opportunities that we had?
Oh, no, I don't think so at all. I mean, you can never say there'll never be another working class prime minister or whatever, because right through centuries of history, the people have made it from the bottom to the top. But the odds are much, much worse today than they were when you and I went through school. This is a symptom of a much bigger malaise, you know, and social mobility has stalled. You know, we do have a stratified society.
Politicians used to boast of their long journey to power. But for Nick Clegg, it's a mere 3-minute walk from the back door of Downing Street to the rather special front door of his old school, Westminster. It was founded in its present form by Elizabeth I in 1560, and over the centuries has educated 7 prime ministers and politicians as varied as Nigel Lawson and Tony Benn. The headmaster here is Dr. Stephen Spur.
I guess if you're well educated here and you're interested in going into a political career at some stage, it's not a big jump from here to over there, is it?
Well,
is that why you've had 7 prime ministers?
Well, I think that's definitely something to do with it. Parliament is not something which is a huge distance and unreachable. It is part of the cultural, historical and mental space that Westminster has here.
It's not just for them, it's for us.
Exactly. From these boarding windows here, they tell their time by Big Ben because they look and they see Big Ben out through there. We use it, as it were, I think, to try to inspire very bright children who are here. It's an academically selective school. To inspire them to have that intellectual reach, that appetite, that ambition.
Good afternoon. And that ambition was certainly on display when I dropped into an A-level economics class.
What is it about the school that produces politicians? You've got Nick Clegg, you've got Chris Huhn, you've had various others.
I think there's something different about Westminster. It's not the teachers that push us to be the best that we want to be. We want to be the best that we want to be. It's this kind of mentality that you get being here.
And it's each other. You don't want to be the person at the bottom of the class. So if you see all your friends working, you're not going to kind of be the one person who's like, oh, I can't be bothered.
I think the opportunity for networking is greater here because there's lots of different people. There's always opportunities to meet new people, and well, their parents might do something that you've never heard of before. You've got lots of opportunities for what you might want to do.
Any of you interested in going into politics? Yeah? How did I work that out?
Well, I mean, I suppose the reason why this school does produce quite a few politicians is that we're so close to the political system. I mean, there's always a big protest going on outside, or there's a big speech being given, or there are
helicopters.
There are helicopters all the time, people camping out on Parliament Square. So we're very much sort of immersed in the sort of British political system, and that's why, whether you like it or not, if you're at this school, you're going to be interested to a greater or lesser extent in politics.
Here, we're constantly talking about politics. We encourage a lot of articulation of one's own voice, one's own ideas, one's own opinions. We test them, however. That's part of just the way the teaching happens here at the school like this.
Public schools like this have always been a privileged pipeline into politics. And though things seem to be changing after the Second World War, today the public schools are back in the ascendant. Only about 7% of us go to fee-paying schools, yet half the cabinet and a third of all MPs did. And after falling steadily for decades, the number of public schoolboys in Parliament is on the up. The biggest conduit in this pipeline to politics, Eton, the school that over the years has produced 19 Prime Ministers.
13 Tory ministers wear the same old school tie.
Even half a century ago, Labour was able to make political capital out of Eton's dominance of the Tories.
You know, it's fascinating to look at the background of Tory ministers and to see how they're linked together by business or family ties.